Many people live each day carrying weight that God never asked them to carry. They wake up thinking about problems, money, family, future, health, and they try to solve everything in their own strength. Their mind runs all day and their heart feels tired, and they do not even realize that worry has slowly become normal. But when we look at the words of Jesus, we see something very clear. He told his followers not to worry about tomorrow, not because life has no problems, but because God already knows what we need. This means there are burdens that belong to God, not to us. When we hold them tightly, we feel pressure, fear, and restlessness. When we give them to Him, we find peace. Stopping worry does not mean you ignore responsibility. You still work, you still plan, you still care for your family, and you still make wise decisions. But there is a difference between doing your part and trying to control everything. Control is where stress grows. Faith is where peace grows. Think of a child walking with a loving parent. The child does not know every detail of the journey, but the child trusts the parent's guidance. In the same way, we walk through life with God. We do not see everything ahead, but He does. When we remember this, our hearts begin to rest. I once spoke with a man who could not sleep at night because he was afraid about his job and future. Every day he repeated the same thoughts, asking, "What if this fails? What if I lose everything?" His body was tired and his spirit was heavy. I told him to start something simple. Each night before sleep, he prayed and spoke honestly to God about his fears. Then he said, "Lord, I give this to you. Help me trust you." At first, nothing dramatic happened, but slowly, his mind became calmer. His situation did not change overnight, but his heart did. He learned that peace begins when you release what you cannot control. When Peter walked on water toward Jesus, he was fine while he trusted the Lord. But when he focused on the wind and waves, fear filled him and he began to sink. Many of us live like that moment. When we look only at problems, worry grows. When we look at Christ, faith grows. This does not mean we never feel fear, but it means fear does not lead our decisions. Trust does. Giving your burdens to God is often a quiet and simple act. It can happen in prayer while sitting alone. It can happen when reading Scripture and remembering His promises. It can happen when you choose not to repeat anxious thoughts again and again. You replace them with trust. Even if your voice trembles, God is not asking for perfect faith. He is asking for willing hearts. When you truly begin to leave things in God's hands, you notice changes inside you. You breathe easier. You react calmer. You become more patient with others. This happens because you no longer believe everything depends on you alone. You remember that God is wise, loving, and faithful. The same God who created the world is able to guide your life. So each day when worry comes, and it will come, pause for a moment. Speak to God. Remind yourself that He sees what you cannot see. Do your part with honesty and effort. Then release the outcome to Him. This is not weakness, this is trust. And over time, you will discover that laying your burdens before God does not make you careless. It makes you stronger, steadier, and more peaceful as you walk forward in faith. Sometimes people believe that if they cannot see change, then nothing is happening. This is a very common feeling, especially when life feels slow, painful, or confusing. You pray, you wait, you try to grow, but everything looks the same. It can make you wonder if God is really working. But the truth is that God often works in ways that are quiet and hidden. Just because your eyes cannot see progress does not mean God has stopped moving. His work inside the heart usually begins long before results appear outside in life. Think about how a seed grows in the ground. When you plant it, you see nothing for days or weeks. If you judge by sight alone, You might think nothing is happening, but beneath the soil, roots are forming, life is developing, and strength is building. Only later does the plant appear. Our spiritual life can be the same. God shakes patience, humility, faith, and wisdom inside us before others notice change. Growth often starts in hidden places. The Bible shows this pattern clearly. Joseph spent years in difficult situations, including prison, before his life turned around. During that time, it must have looked like nothing good was happening, yet God was preparing him for leadership and responsibility. If Joseph's story were judged in the middle, it would seem like failure. But when the full picture came together, we could see that God had been working the whole time. This teaches us not to decide too quickly that God is absent when life feels stuck. In everyday life, you may notice this truth in small ways. A person who struggles with anger may pray for change and still fail many times. But over time, they begin to pause before reacting. They speak softer. They apologize quicker. The change may be slow, but it is real. God is guiding them step by step. Or someone facing fear may still feel nervous, yet they choose to trust God anyway. Courage is forming, even if fear has not completely disappeared. These small movements are signs of God's quiet work. I remember talking with a young believer who felt disappointed because he expected instant transformation after giving his life to Christ. He thought old habits would vanish immediately. When they did not, he felt discouraged. I reminded him that growth is a journey, not a single moment. Just like learning any skill takes time and practice, spiritual maturity develops through daily trust, prayer, and obedience. Months later, he shared how he noticed changes in his attitude, his thoughts, and his choices. God had been shaping him slowly, even when he thought nothing was happening. It is also important to understand that God's work is not only about changing circumstances. Sometimes He changes our perspective first. You may still face the same challenges, but you begin to see them differently. You become calmer, wiser, or more hopeful. This interchange is powerful. It helps you walk through life with strength instead of fear. God often prepares the heart before He adjusts the situation. When you feel discouraged because progress seems invisible, remember God's promises. He does not abandon His people. He does not forget His purpose. Even when odds are low and faith feels small, He remains faithful. Trusting Him during quiet seasons builds deeper belief than trusting Him only when results are obvious. Faith grows strongest when it stands without visible proof. So keep praying, keep learning, keep trusting, even when you see no clear signs of change. Do not measure God's work only by what you can observe today. Believe that He is active in ways beyond your understanding. In time, you may look back and realize how much He shaped your character, your mindset, and your path. The journey may feel slow, but God's timing is wise, and while you continue forward, step by step, hold on to this gentle truth in your heart. Even when nothing seems different, God is still working within you, guiding you, strengthening you, and preparing you for what lies ahead. Letting go of fear and trusting God is not something that happens once and stays perfect forever. Many people imagine surrender as one strong prayer where they give everything to God and never struggle again, but real life is different. Faith grows through daily choices. Each day brings new worries, new questions, and new moments where you must decide again whether you will trust God or hold tightly to fear. This is why surrender is a daily practice, not a single event. When you wake up in the morning, your mind may already begin thinking about responsibilities, challenges, or unknown situations ahead. At that moment, you have a choice. You can let anxiety guide your thoughts, or you can pause and place your day into God's hands. This may be a short prayer, something simple like asking God for wisdom, peace, and guidance. It may not remove every concern instantly, but it sets your heart in the right direction. It reminds you that you are not walking alone. Jesse showed this kind of daily trust in his own life. He often stepped away to pray, not because he lacked strength, but because connection with the Father guided his actions. This teaches us that spiritual strength comes from regular time with God. It is not about long or complicated words. Honest and simple communication builds trust. When you speak openly about your fears and needs, you create space for peace to grow. Throughout the day, situations will arise that test your surrender. Someone may speak harshly to you. Plans may change, or unexpected problems may appear. In these moments, fear or frustration can quickly take control, but surrender invites you to pause before reacting. You remind yourself that God sees the situation and that He can guide your response. This pause may only take seconds, yet it can change your attitude and decisions. Over time, these small pauses become habits that shape your character. Many believers feel discouraged when they notice they still worry after trying to trust God. They think they have failed, but this is not failure. It is part of growth. Even faithful people in Scripture struggled with fear and doubt at times. What mattered was that they kept returning to God. Each return strengthened their relationship with Him. Your journey is similar. Every time you choose trust again, your faith becomes steadier. I remember meeting someone who tried to release his worries through prayer, but felt they always came back. He believed something was wrong with him. I told him that surrender is like learning to walk a path. At first you step off track often, but you keep correcting your direction. The important thing is not how many times fear appears, but how many times you turn back toward trust. He began to practice this daily and gradual. Ally, his mindset shifted. He did not become free from concern overnight, but he became calmer and more confident in God's care. Reading Scripture also supports daily surrender. God's promises remind you of His character. When you fill your thoughts with truth, fear loses some of its power. You begin to see challenges through the lens of faith instead of uncertainty. Worship, gratitude, and fellowship with other believers strengthen this habit too. They help keep your heart focused on God's presence. On God's presence. Surrender each day brings a gentle peace. It does not make life perfect, but it keeps you grounded. You stop trying to control everything and instead learn to walk step by step with God's guidance. This steady trust shapes patience, humility, and resilience. As you continue living in this rhythm, you notice that your reactions change, your confidence grows, and your relationship with God deepens. And in this simple, repeated choice to trust Him again and again, you discover that daily surrender becomes not a burden, but a source of strength and quiet assurance for your journey. Life often brings seasons that feel difficult and confusing. When problems appear, many people quickly think something must be wrong or that God has left them. It is natural to feel that way because pain and struggle are uncomfortable. But not every hard season means failure or punishment. Sometimes these moments are places where God teaches us, shapes us, and prepares us for what lies ahead. Instead of seeing struggles only as obstacles, we can learn to see them as opportunities for growth. The Bible shows many examples of people who grew through difficulty. David spent years running from danger before he became king. During that time, he learned courage, patience, and trust in God. If his Eve had been easy, he may not have developed the strength needed for leadership. In the same way, challenges in our lives can train us. They teach us lessons that comfort cannot teach. When things go wrong, we begin to depend more on God, and this dependence builds deeper faith. Think about how patience forms. It rarely grows during easy times. Patience grows when you wait for something important and it takes longer than expected. You may feel restless, but through waiting you learn endurance. Or consider humility. Success sometimes fills the heart with pride, but struggles remind us of our limits and bring us back to gratitude. Strength also develops this way. Facing challenges stretches your inner ability to cope and adapt. Over time, you discover that you can stand through storms that once would have shaken you. I remember speaking with someone who lost an opportunity they worked hard to achieve. They felt rejected and disappointed. At first, they believed it was only a setback with no purpose. Yet during that time, they learned new skills, met new people, and discovered a path they had not considered before. Looking back, they said the struggle helped them grow into a wiser and more understanding person. This does not mean pain was pleasant, but it shows how growth can come through hardship. Struggles also deepen compassion. When you face difficulties, you become more sensitive to others who are hurting. You listen better. You show kindness with more understanding. God can use your experiences to comfort others later. In this way, your challenges serve not only your growth, but also the blessing of someone else. Hard seasons can open your heart in ways that comfort never could. It is important to remember that growth through struggle does not mean you should enjoy suffering or pretend it does not hurt. God understands human weakness and invites you to pray honestly. Sharing your fears and emotions with Him brings comfort and clarity. Trusting Him does not remove every challenge, but it reminds you that you are supported and guided. Even when answers are unclear, you are not alone. When facing a hard time, try asking simple questions that help you learn from the experience. Instead of only asking why something happened, consider asking what you can gain from it. You may notice patience increasing, or wisdom developing, or your trust in God becoming steadier. These inner changes are valuable and lasting. They prepare you for future situations and responsibilities. Over time, when you look back, you may see that struggles were stepping stones rather than barriers. They built qualities that shaped your character and faith. They made you stronger and more prepared for life's journey. With this understanding, you begin to face challenges with less fear and more hope. You realize that even difficult seasons can carry purpose. And as you continue forward with trust, you grow in patience, humility, strength, and faith, knowing that God can use every experience to shape you into a wiser and steadier person. Many people are very hard on themselves when they make mistakes or face weakness. They look at their failures and begin to believe that they are finished, that they have gone too far, or that they are not worthy of God's care anymore. This thinking creates discouragement and sometimes leads people to give up trying. But the message of faith teaches something different and comforting. God does not stop loving or working in a person because of failure. If He has not given up on you, then you must not give up on yourself. The life-o. If Jesus shows this clearly, His sacrifice on the cross was not for perfect people, but for people who struggle, fall, and need grace. The resurrection reminds us that hope can rise even after the darkest moments. This means your mistakes are not the end of your story. God's mercy offers a chance to grow, learn, and continue forward. When you remember this truth, you begin to treat yourself with patience instead of harsh judgment. The Bible contains many examples of people who failed but were not abandoned. Peter denied Jesus during a moment of fear. That was a serious mistake, and he felt deep regret. Yet Jesus restored him and still gave him a role in spreading the message of faith. This teaches us that failure does not cancel God's purpose. Instead, it can become part of a journey that shapes humility and deeper trust. You may look at your own past and feel ashamed, but God looks at your future with hope. It is important to understand that not giving up on yourself does not mean ignoring mistakes. Growth includes honesty and learning. When you recognize what went wrong, you can change direction. Prayer, reflection, and guidance from Scripture help you move forward wisely. But there is a big difference between learning from mistakes and believing you are worthless because of them. One brings growth, the other brings despair. God invites you toward growth. I once spoke with someone who felt they had wasted many years making poor decisions. They believed it was too late to rebuild their life. I reminded them that as long as life continues, change is possible. They began to take small steps, improving habits, reconnecting with faith, and seeking positive influence. Over time, they experienced progress. Their story did not change overnight, but hope returned. They learned that God's patience is longer than human regret. You may sometimes compare yourself to others and feel behind or inadequate. Comparison often weakens confidence and distracts from your own path. God's work in each person is unique and personal. Your journey is not meant to mirror someone else's timeline. Trusting that God is still shaping you helps you stay focused on your own growth. Progress may be slow, but steady effort guided by faith creates real change. Encouraging yourself through faith also means remembering God's promises. He speaks of forgiveness, renewal, and strength. These words remind you that your identity is not based only on past actions, but also on present grace. When you hold on to this perspective, your mindset becomes more hopeful. You begin to act with confidence instead of fear. This confidence supports healthy choices and perseverance. Each day offers a chance to continue walking forward. When setbacks occur, pause, learn, pray, and try again. Do not let shame convince you that the journey is over. Faith teaches resilience. It reminds you that God's love remains steady, even when human strength falters. By believing that God has not given up on you, you discover the courage to keep growing, improving, and trusting. And in this steady effort, you move ahead with renewed purpose, knowing that your life still holds meaning and potential under God's guiding care. Many people believe peace comes when everything in life is under their control. They think if they can plan perfectly, avoid mistakes, and manage every detail, then they will finally feel calm. But real life does not work that way. There are always unexpected events, changes, and situations beyond human power. When we try to control everything, we often feel stressed, tired, and resettled. This is why true peace is not found in control. It is found in trust, trusting God to guide, protect, and provide even when we do not understand everything. You still make wise decisions, do your work, and take care of daily duties. But you stop believing that the final result depends only on you. Instead, you remember that God's wisdom is greater than yours, and His plan reaches further than your sight. When your heart accepts this, pressure begins to lift. You do your part faithfully, then leave the rest in God's hands. Jesus taught this kind of peace. He spoke to people who were worried about food, clothing, and tomorrow's needs. He encouraged them to seek God first and trust that their needs would be cared for. This teaching is simple but powerful. It shifts focus away from fear and toward faith. When you live with this mindset, your thoughts become calmer. You stop replay worst-case scenarios again and again. Instead, you remind yourself that God is present in every step. There are moments when trust feels difficult, especially when life seems uncertain. A person facing financial stress, health concerns, or family problems may feel overwhelmed. Trying to control every detail only increases anxiety. But when that person prays, reflects, and releases the outcome to God, something inside changes. The situation may still be challenging, but the heart becomes steadier. This inner steadiness is the beginning of peace. It grows from faith, not from perfect conditions. I once spoke with someone who constantly worried about the future. They planned every step and felt uneasy whenever something changed. This habit left them exhausted. Over time, they practiced trusting God more intentionally. They continued planning responsibly, but they also accepted that not everything could be predicted. They prayed about their concerns and reminded themselves of God's care. Gradually, their stress lessened. They discovered that peace was not about controlling life, but about walking through it with faith. Trust also brings freedom to accept outcomes that differ from expectations. Sometimes plans succeed, and sometimes they change direction. When you trust God, disappointment does not break you. You believe that even unexpected paths may hold purpose. This belief helps you adapt with hope rather than fear. It keeps your spirit balanced and strong. Building this trust happens through simple daily actions. Prayer connects your thoughts with God's presence. Reading Scripture strengthens your understanding of His character. Gratitude shifts attention from problems to blessings. These practices slowly shape your mindset. You begin to rely less on control and more on faith. With time, this reliance becomes natural. Peace that comes from trust is gentle but steady. It does not depend on perfect circumstances. It remains during challenges and celebrations alike. You carry confidence that God walks beside you, guiding your steps. This confidence softens worry and brings calm to your heart. By releasing the need to control everything and placing trust in God's wisdom, you open space for true peace to grow, allowing you to move through life with assurance, balance, and quiet strength.